is not Seattle. Different economic conference, similar protests. The U.S. government acknowledges it may not have leveled with nuclear weapons workers. Also, meet Mudge, a hacker who used to battle high-tech executives. He's about to switch sides, sort of. From CNN Center in Atlanta, this is WorldView. I'm Andrea Hall. Thanks so much for joining us. President Clinton is on his way back to Washington after addressing the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Global trade topped his agenda, but he also squeezed in some Middle East peace brokering and offered a plan to deal with protesters. Kelly Wallace has details.
Hundreds of anti-free trade protesters tried to disrupt an elite economic gathering in the Swiss Alps. But policemen, using pepper spray and rubber bullets, didn't let the demonstrators get their way. Earlier, President Clinton told an audience of corporate heavyweights and political leaders that world trade meetings need to be open so that other voices can be heard.
Find a way to let the dissenters have their say and turn them into constructive partners. If you do that, we will continue to integrate the world economically.
Mr. Clinton said the demonstrations at the World Trade Organization talks in Seattle were a wake-up call, but said an end to the WTO is not the answer. Opening up markets, not closing them, is the best way to fuel the global economy and spread economic prosperity to those countries left behind, according to the president.
This is true whether you're in Detroit, Davos, Dhaka, or Dakar. Worldwide, open markets do create jobs.
And Mr. Clinton reiterated his hope that the U.S. Congress will approve China's entry into the WTO.
It would be a mistake of monumental proportions for the United States not to support China's entry into the WTO.
The president's trip to this picture postcard setting marks the first visit by a U.S. president to the annual Economic Talk Fest. And since Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat was also here, Mr. Clinton managed to squeeze in his second meeting with him this month and announced that Arafat and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak would meet next week in the Middle East. But Mr. Clinton's brief visit focused primarily on world trade. And White House aides hope after the breakdown of discussions in Seattle, he may have planted the seeds for another round of global trade talks. Kelly Wallace, CNN, Davos, Switzerland.
For the first time, the U.S. government says workers who helped make nuclear weapons in the 1940s, 50s, and early 60s may have been exposed to cancer-causing radiation and chemicals. A preliminary study indicates the arsenal of weapons used to help the U.S. in the Cold War may now be harming the workers who built them. Here's Jonathan Aiken's report.
The draft report says thousands of workers in government nuclear processing plants may have been exposed to cancer-causing radiation and chemicals. Most of those workers processed beryllium, plutonium, and other materials used to manufacture atomic weapons during World War II and the Cold War. The report reverses a position held by the federal government for nearly 6 decades, which minimized the risks to nuclear materials workers.
They weren't actively lied to, but they were not informed of potential exposures. So it's not a direct lie, but it could be that they were not leveled with.
The report says higher incidences of 22 different types of cancers were found in workers at 14 Energy Department sites, and follows an Energy Department report in July that beryllium workers had contracted an incurable disease. A lot of these workers have lived a catch-22 for decades. They worked for the federal government, but they were hired by private contractors, so they didn't get federal disability benefits. And workmen's compensation only covers injuries on the job, not occupational illnesses that can lead to cancer 20, 30 years later. Compensating beryllium workers alone could run between $15 to $30 million a year, but the costs could run into the hundreds of millions once a larger pool of federal workers and their job-related cancers are covered. Still, a small price to pay, says one sponsor of compensation legislation.
This is stepping up and taking responsibility for governmental activity, albeit in many instances in ignorance, that injured American working men and women.
What is changing here is for the first time the government is saying that, yes, there were exposures, now we're ready to pay.
Though exactly how much will be paid to how many won't be known for months. Jonathan Aiken for CNN, Washington.
Taking a look now at the case of Elian Gonzalez. Cuba's president is speaking out. Fidel Castro says Elian's mother was not on a flight to freedom when she set out on her fatal journey to the United States. Castro says she was forced into the trip by her boyfriend. Elian's grandmothers will stay in the United States for more meetings. A congressional source says they are also waiting for a response to a letter they sent to President Clinton. U.S. Representative Dan Burton met with Elian Saturday in Miami. Burton says Elian told him he doesn't want to go back to Cuba. A U.S.-based researcher is back home nearly 6 months after being detained in China on charges of smuggling state secrets. Song Young Yi had been charged under China's secrets law. His release came unexpectedly. Colleagues say he was in China to research the country's 1966 to 1976 cultural revolution. With tourists from around the globe pouring into Atlanta for the Super Bowl, it is exactly the wrong time for an ice storm. The messy details just ahead. And then father and son hit the campaign trail, the latest in the races for the U.S. presidential nominations. From our Wolf Blitzer. Stay with us.
Club Ramada now, and every cool dip in our pool, every chill drink on our menu, every cozy night in our rooms will be even more rewarding. Club Ramada is free to join, and every dollar you spend will take you closer to great rewards like free nights, free flights, and free fun stuff for the whole family. Join Club Ramada, and earning great rewards will be easier than ever. For reservations, call 1-800-2-RAMADA or at ramada.com on the internet.
4 airbags, a steel safety cage, and a whiplash protection seating system. All the safety you'd expect in a Volvo. At a price you may not. Introducing the Volvo S40.
Great walk, huh, Jake? Your next call.
When you were a little girl, osteoporosis was the last thing on your mind. That was then. This is now. Citracal is the calcium supplement that's different. It's calcium citrate, which is easily absorbed. So do what's right for your bones. Take Citracal.
Sunday, on a special edition of Crossfire, live from Manchester, New Hampshire, Bill Press and Mary Madeline go head-to-head just 2 days before the all-important first primary in the nation. Sunday, 7:30 Eastern on CNN.
Sunday on CNN's late edition, the last word in Sunday Talk from New Hampshire, John McCain. I'm Wolf Blitzer. 2 days before the primary, we'll talk with the man who's in the political battle of his life against George W. Bush. Sunday, noon Eastern on CNN.
The Super Bowl doesn't start until tomorrow, but slick roads are providing plenty of collisions in Atlanta, as you just saw. City officials are asking people not to drive in the city unless they absolutely have to. The National Weather Service predicts sporadic sleet and freezing rain throughout the day. Well, let's check in with our meteorologist, Chad Myers, and see what he has to say about this weather. Chad?
Andrea, things are calming down for Atlanta right now. We still have a couple more showers. Temperatures still right around 31 or 32. But the big story is now this storm has really stretched itself out. All the way now from Davenport, Iowa, all the way back down south to about the Carolinas. And we're seeing this heavy, heavy snowfall eventually moving its way all the way up into the Poconos, into the Adirondacks and the Catskills. A very significant low-pressure system spinning around here. I'm going to zoom into a couple of spots, one down here to the southeast and another back out here where we're seeing some heavier snowfall now still developing for Indianapolis, Peoria, all the way back into the Quad Cities. Here's the snow for Charlotte. You're going to see some more icing back behind it as warm air rides on top of your cold air. We are going to see the snow change over to sleet and then eventually over to freezing rain. And that's probably the best way to get it. If you have to get it, at least you get a little layer of snow down to protect you from that layer of ice that's still coming. And as we move on up, back up to the north, Lexington back to Chicago, to the southwest of Detroit, some snow, Cedar Rapids all the way down into most of central Illinois. Now here's what's going on. Two major low pressure centers now still spinning around the main upper level low. And this entire system will move on up toward the northeast into New Hampshire. Good news is for New Hampshire, most of the snow will be on Monday, but they're still going to be recovering on Tuesday. This is a potential 4 to 8 inch snowfall for New Hampshire, and don't forget about the primary that's going on there on Tuesday. As we dump this snow back behind it, very heavy snowfall for Cleveland, Columbus, back into Pittsburgh, and very heavy snowfall, potential for 12 inches just to the west of Philadelphia into the Lehigh Valley and the mountains around there, Berks County, and all that could really get nailed. Rain and mountain snow back out to the west for California. We're not trying to forget you, West Coast. It's just been, that's the major story for the past couple of days. You have another system coming on shore here. Some of that rain will be heavy. Some of the mountain snow will be heavy. We have snow advisories and winter storm watches already being posted for the higher elevations of Washington, Oregon, and into Utah. That's all I have for you right now. Andrea?
Thank you, Chad. The first presidential primary in the U.S. is in New Hampshire Tuesday. Saturday, Republican frontrunner George W. Bush campaigned for the first time alongside his father. On the Democratic side, Bill Bradley has been questioning Vice President Al Gore's stand on abortion rights. Well, with us live in Manchester, New Hampshire, is our Wolf Blitzer. Wolf, it's getting pretty thick as it gets down to the wire.
Yeah, we always expected it would, and in fact it is, Andrea. Former Senator Bill Bradley is attacking Al Gore over Gore's commitment to the right for a woman to choose to have an abortion, as well as for his overall integrity. As the candidates sprint to the Tuesday finish here in New Hampshire, Bradley appears to be gaining on Gore since going on the offensive earlier this week. Saturday, he accused Gore of knowingly shading the truth, and his staff has released a letter dated 1984 in which then Congressman Gore assured a constituent of his deep conviction abortion is wrong. Asked to respond to Bradley Saturday, Gore said he wouldn't sink to such a level, but on the abortion question, he did assert that he's always supported Roe versus Wade, even if he did at one time oppose federal funding for abortions. 3 days before this first-in-the-nation primary, our polls show two very tight races. On the Democratic side, Gore appears to hold an 8-point lead in the newly released CNN USA Today Gallup poll. This tracking poll, which measures opinion over a stretch of 3 days, has a margin of error of plus or minus 4 points. 2 days ago, Gore's lead over Bradley was 18 points. On the Republican side, John McCain is locked in a virtual dead heat with frontrunner George W. Bush. McCain with a tenuous 1-point lead. While Bush could survive a loss in New Hampshire, McCain might not. More on that later. CNN's Jonathan Karl, meanwhile, reports on the top two Republicans and the final push for the votes that could make the difference.
Wait a minute. The perils of the photo op.
I didn't have my gloves on.
The Texas governor hopes he does better as a candidate than as a soccer goalie. At the next event, with a little country music, he attracted his largest New Hampshire crowd to date, with a little help from his father, the former president.
This boy, this son of ours, is not going to let you down.
Bush's dad is a man with as much experience in the New Hampshire primary as any politician alive. But the elder Bush's vast experience here hasn't always been pleasant. In 1980, his first bid for the White House was derailed by a defiant Ronald Reagan.
I am paying for this microphone, Mr.
8 years later, Bush again found himself on the defensive.
I'm getting sick and tired. I am every single night hearing one of these carping little liberal Democrats jumping all over my you know what.
Bush narrowly defeated challenger Bob Dole that year, and in 1992, then President Bush faced a surprisingly strong challenge from Pat Buchanan. This time around, the younger Bush is facing a stiff challenge from John McCain.
Now, Governor Bush is out there raising money. I'm going to be out there raising hell.
Running slightly ahead in most polls here, John McCain is sharpening his attacks on both Bush and Democrat Al Gore.
I'm going to point my finger at him. I'm going to say, Al, you and your buddy, Bill Clinton, debased the institutions of government. Now, when George Bush is in that debate facing Al Gore, he'll have nothing to say.
Talking to reporters on his bus, McCain said there are doubts about whether Bush is qualified to be president.
I think it gives rise to the view of some that perhaps he's not, some people that he's not ready for prime time.
Are you one of those people?
No. But I could certainly see why people would say that.
Challenging Bush's qualifications is critical to the McCain campaign strategy here. McCain is calling himself the candidate in the race who won't need on-the-job training in the White House. Jonathan Karl, CNN, Manchester, New Hampshire.
And joining us now to discuss all of this and more, CNN senior political analyst Bill Schneider. On the McCain front, if he loses, but loses narrowly to George W. Bush, he can still go on. There's no constitutional reason why he can't.
He can still go on, but look, he hasn't a lot of money. Bush has a large amount of money, about 10 times as much as John McCain. John McCain has been riding on press coverage. I mean, he's been talking to the press, it seems, 12 hours a day. He's hoping to get momentum in New Hampshire to carry him through South Carolina and California because he just doesn't have the resources to wage a full-scale campaign.
All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about Bill Bradley. He took the unusual decision earlier this week to give an interview to the New York Times. It will be in tomorrow morning, Sunday morning's New York Times. Speaks to Dr. Lawrence Altman, who's the medical reporter for the New York Times, releases all of his experience, all of his medical experience. The doctors that the New York Times interviewed say he's in excellent shape, but he does disclose one new additional detail that we didn't know, that he had a procedure called cardioversion, which is designed to help him get over these little fluctuations of the heart. Is this going to be a serious political problem?
Well, Wolf, the one thing is that every time we find out more about Bradley's medical condition, a small but new problem suddenly emerges. This time it turns out that the procedure requires that he be sedated, anesthetized for as much as a day at a time, and Bradley revealed that if that happens, and he hasn't had it in 19 months, but he could have this procedure again. If that happens, he might have to turn over power to his vice president under the terms of the 25th Amendment. That would give Americans a little bit of pause because they would say, no, wait a minute. We're in the middle of a crisis and he needs this procedure. Suddenly the president's not going to be there. He has to turn things over to the vice president. That's something that's a little uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Although we should stress the doctors do conclude in this New York Times article he's in, quote, excellent shape. Can Bradley still turn this race in New Hampshire next Tuesday around? He's behind Gore, but he seems to be catching up.
The answer is, of course he can. He was ahead for most of the campaign until about 2 weeks ago. Bradley started moving up, and Gore started moving up, and Gore got a little bit of a bounce out of Iowa, and now that seems to be wearing off. Of course he can. These candidates are not that different ideologically. Liberals and moderates can vote for either one of them. So sure, he could win this. There could be a lot of last-minute turnarounds. We've seen it happen before in New Hampshire.
And we'll be watching. Bill Schneider, of course, thanks for joining us. And John McCain will be among my guests tomorrow on CNN's late edition. That's Sunday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, seen on CNN and CNN International. That's the latest from here in New Hampshire. I'm Wolf Blitzer. Stay with CNN for live updates from the First in the Nation primary. Now back to Andrea in Atlanta. Andrea?
Thank you, Wolf. And just ahead on WorldView, it's been a whole year since the first ever hand transplant. But did the operation work? And how is that patient doing? An update coming up next.
In one easy stop, you can get the right tires, the right battery, and shocks, and brakes for your Ford, Lincoln, or Mercury from the people who know your car best at competitive prices like this. Now get a Motorcraft Tested Tough battery for $59.95. Quality care service, the right people, the right parts, and always the right prices at participating Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealers.
Rock to a different beat. WorldView, the global music program that interviews the world's most renowned artists.
And when I'm on tour, I always try to play. But I believe in people listening to music.
My job is to make music and to write lyrics.
Brings you in-depth profiles.
You know, they say you listen to the blues to get rid of the blues.
And the biggest music news.
The first of many fires erupted during the Red Hot
Chili Peppers. In tune with Volvo. Tonight, midnight on CNN.
Tuesday on CNN.
It's the first primary of election 2000, and CNN is there, live in the heart of New Hampshire. How will the results in this state set the stage for the rest of the campaign? Hear from the voters and see how their decisions could affect the results of future primaries. It all begins with CNN's Bernard Shaw, Judy Woodruff, and Jeff Greenfield, with an expanded edition of Inside Politics at 5 Eastern, followed by a special night of live programming. Election 2000, the New Hampshire primary, Tuesday beginning at 5 Eastern, only on CNN.
I'm watching you, CNN.
A protest against a planned Holocaust memorial leads our look at the stories making headlines around the world. In Germany, hundreds of neo-Nazi demonstrators chanted and carried old red, white, and black flags as they marched past the proposed construction site and through Berlin's famous Brandenburg Gate Saturday. They're protesting a planned memorial for Holocaust victims, which will cover a field with 2,700 concrete slabs. It will be set up to resemble a graveyard. Witnesses in the trial against ousted Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif are providing damaging evidence in the fourth day of testimony. Sharif and 6 others are charged with hijacking, attempted murder, and terrorism. The charges stem from an October incident when the 7 allegedly tried to keep a plane from landing in Karachi. Saturday, a witness testified he was ordered to turn off runway lights at the airport so the plane could not land. The results are in, and NASA is surprised by just how well former Senator John Glenn handled his return trip to space. According to a new report, the then 77-year-old astronaut's body handled the rigors of the 1998 shuttle mission about as well as his younger counterparts. NASA says Glenn's results show no reason why older people should not fly in space. It's been a year now since the first hand transplant was performed in the United States. You may recall the young New Jersey man who received the operation. CNN medical correspondent Dr. Steve Salvatore takes a look at just how he's doing.
It's been quite a year for Matthew Scott. It began at the University of Louisville in January of 1999 with a hand transplant. It was the first in the United States and still an experimental procedure.
You can't go into a procedure like this, with the thought that it's going to be just, all roses and sunshine.
There's a 30 to 50% chance of rejection, and we're talking a year during the next year.
Failure would have meant his body rejected the transplant. To prevent this from happening, Scott has been on anti-rejection drugs and will be for the rest of his life. Drugs that can increase his risk of infection and cancer. In the past year, his body has tried to reject the new hand 3 times, and his medicines had to be increased temporarily. There was also the question of how well he'd be able to use his new hand.
We anticipate you'd be able to use the hand to open a door, to pick up a glass, to dress yourself. You may not be able to use the hand to button single-handedly a shirt, a very fine motion.
Their prediction proved accurate. At first, Matthew Scott couldn't do anything with his new hand, but 3 months after the operation, he threw out the first pitch at a Phillies baseball game.
Every day, for 20 minutes, a half hour every day, we were just throwing, working on the hand grip.
And on his 1-year anniversary, he can open doors, grab, and hold on to things. He's even gained some sensation in his hand. Yes, it was quite a year for Matthew Scott. Dr. Steve Salvatore, CNN, New York.
You'll want all the medical news, and you can do that by logging on to our website at cnn.com/health. It is produced in partnership with WebMD.
News from Medicine is brought to you by Tylenol. Take comfort in our strength.
You know my friend Mr. Moretti. He worries about the arthritis pain in my hands. So he came with me to the doctor. Now I am on a wonderful treatment.
Tylenol Arthritis Extended Relief. It works as well as the leading arthritis prescription, but is much gentler to your stomach.
Mr. Moretti says I have beautiful hands.
Tylenol Arthritis. Take comfort in our strength.
airbags, a steel safety cage, and a whiplash protection seating system. All the safety you'd expect in a Volvo. At a price you may not. Introducing the Volvo S40.
Great walk, huh, Jake? Your next call.
When you were a little girl, osteoporosis was the last thing on your mind. That was then. This is now. Citracal is the calcium supplement that's different. It's calcium citrate, which is easily absorbed. So do what's right for your bones. Take Citracal.
Sunday on CNN and Time. They lived on the same street, rode the same school bus. Now one is dead and the other is serving a life sentence for his murder.
I don't see myself as a murderer.
A story of bullying that went too far.
We think he planned it before he got off the bus, exactly what he was going to do.
Now the victim's parents are asking why a school system could not protect their son.
I just want to apologize.
CNN and Time. Sunday, 9 Eastern on CNN.
An update in the Elian Gonzalez case. CNN has learned that Elian's grandmothers will be returning to Cuba tomorrow. Again, Elian Gonzalez's grandmother is returning to Cuba tomorrow. And Amazon.com making waves with its announcements that it will lay off 150 workers. The internet bookseller says the job cuts are part of an internal reorganization. And most of those cuts will be at the company's Seattle headquarters. The cuts represent about 2% of Amazon's total workforce. A group of computer hackers recently made headlines with the announcement they are going corporate. The company, called At Stake, will be a computer security services provider. CNN science correspondent Ann Kellen met with the group to see how they're shedding their hacker past.
If you're looking for computer security, then the internet is not the place to be.
He's a hacker and is invited, along with fellow group members, to advise U.S. senators where computers are vulnerable to thieves. He's a trained musician and plays a mean guitar. He goes by the handle Mudge, won't reveal his name, rank, or social security number.
I don't have to worry about, who's waiting outside of my house when I leave in the morning.
And has been a member of a band of computer hackers called Loft since 1992. Headquartered in a secret warehouse near Boston, the Loft is filled with hand-me-down equipment. There are processors and networks from Novell to Microsoft.
We've got it from dumpsters. We've got it as, people give the equipment to us.
And once they own it, they legally attack it, learning how each system works inside and out. Each member has an area of expertise, from networks to hardware. And when they find a problem, they announce it to the world.
If you don't bring it public and if you just hand the information off to the offending company, they just want to bury it because it's cheaper for them to do that.
And now this lofty band of hackers is going corporate, moving to white-walled offices, getting money to buy new equipment, a place where they can do more good, says Mudge. Ann Kellen, CNN, Boston, Massachusetts.
That's WorldView. I'm Andrea Hall. Thanks for joining us.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Bell Atlantic, your guide through the wiles of communication.
Go to CNN.com any hour of the day. Click on weather, and you'll get 4-day forecasts for over 8,000 cities around the world. Relax and enjoy your favorite movies in the comfort of your home on pay-per-view.
There's a reason why Toyota sells so many cars, but you've got to see for yourself.
Like Camry, America's best-selling car 3 years in a row now comes with your choice of savings. Choose 2.9% APR financing or $500 customer cash back or special low lease rates. That's right, it's your choice. 2.9 financing, $500 customer cash back or special lease rates on Camry.
Now you know who's best.